Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody to another edition of Conversations with Carl. I appreciate you guys and love you guys so much. Thank you for tuning in. Hope everybody had a wonderful holiday weekend. Yes, this is a sad one because September and Labor Day means that the summer is closing down, but it's back to normal. Schools, vacations is over, all of that whole hum. But I hope you had a beautiful one. I hope you had a beautiful summer and welcome back to Conversation with Carl. I have a lovely guest on today, and we're going to be talking about something that only is pure and dear to my heart, but it's also dear and to her heart as well. We're going to be talking about communication and vulnerability in relationships. How important is that? Yes, I have the wonderful, wonderful opportunity to talk to my guest today on Zooms, and we've shared some ideas and some things. And she is an amazing lady. She's doing a bunch of amazing things, and I just wanted to share her with you today. For those who are tuning in live, please tell me where you're tuning in from. Drop your information in the comments section. We want to hear from you. If you got any topics or anything that you want us to discuss, we'll try to put those on. And we want to acknowledge you. Let us know if you hashtag team live or hashtag team replay and let us know. And let us know where you're chiming in from because we're going up into the wonderful province of Canada today. That's where we're going, and we're going to hang out at the border, and we're bringing to the stage none other than the beautiful Chantal Landreville. I tried to put my little Frenchness on it. How
You
are
did
you
a good
this?
job. You did a good job.
I hope I did a beautiful job. I try to rehearse a little bit, but I hope I did a beautiful job. So, how are you doing this morning, dear?
I'm fabulous. I'm super excited to be here, and I loved it. I loved your intro of like taking a little trip to the Canadian border.
Yeah, I'm going up to the border today. So I let people know that this is a global show. We have people on, and that is the wonderfulness of being able to just do things on streaming. We could just be anywhere at any point in time and conversating about anything. And it is just so amazing how we've drawn these connections during this time of pandemic, though it has kept us apart. And actually, it's just broadened us because I don't think that I would have met you, and I know you wouldn't have met me. And for so many of us in our networks that we have on our platforms, LinkedIn, even the social media platforms that you carry or that you're on, you would not, maybe nine and a half out of 10, you probably wouldn't meet those people. And here
Agreed.
you have the opportunity to interact with them, find out what they are, find out what they're about, find out what they love, their passions, their dreams, their desires. All of these things are being shared. And it is such a lovely thing that we're growing together in the magnitude of which we're doing now. So, how are you, dear? How have you been this weekend?
I've been great. I actually had such a lovely weekend because, as you said, it's kind of like the last weekend of summer.
Yes.
So we made a point to enjoy the outdoors as much as we can, and we just took time to slow things down. Sometimes you have so many things on the schedule, and as like we're getting back to like, you know, anti socializing COVID times, we're reintegrating the social life. I realized, oh, I don't want to start going back to 1,000 miles a minute like I used to do. So
Yes.
we made a point to really take time to take time. It's one of my favorite expressions to say is take time to take the time.
Yes. Take time to take the time. Right.
So we had a lot of quality time, me and my boyfriend, which was very, very nice. So thank you for asking.
Now, give me a little bit about that. And I know you're buying. I know from talking to you, love coach. Like, when I hear those terms, like, I don't know. Most time when people hear love, their mind goes to so many different arenas, and thinking about that and processing it. And most of the time, for us, just being who we are, a lot of time we're not educated to the point of love because it's not as how it sounds. Because most people they interject love with sexual encounters and that kind of thing. But love is way more than that. And I think from a standpoint of us understanding, we don't really understand to the magnitude of what really loves is and what that encompass. How do you get that across with people with just in your profession and what you're doing? And how do you kind of like get people to understand love and from a love coach and what that means?
So great question. Thank you for allowing me to give you some nuggets on that. So
Yeah.
I've this all started with my own personal journey. I was a single girl struggling for more than 20 years trying to find, my magical man. And it was one failure after the other. But the only thing I would say through my journey of ups and downs in that department was I was always very curious and open to learning and just improving myself as a person. So I would say my journey of self-development and just working on myself was always part of my journey in love. And I through those 20 years, the one thing I started questioning myself was, if I'm doing all this kind of work, and I still can't figure it out, what does the average person do? Like, how are they getting through? So I actually woke up one morning, and I think we briefly had this conversation when what I asked is like, what is love really anyway? And I couldn't even answer that question myself. And I like to think that I'm a very evolved, and I do a lot of reading and, every conference and every speaker and I was like, wow, okay, if I can't answer this question, I would say that we're really not clear on what it is. And when I started building this program, because the second part I realized when I found finally my magical unicorn, as I love to call him, and started building my relationship, I was lucky that I had learned everything I had in the last 20 years to apply it to my relationship, because we've never been educated on how to be in relationship. So it's like, how the hell are we even supposed to succeed? So when you talk about different levels of love, there's tons. Obviously, you talk a lot about vulnerability and self-love, but I would say that the one thing that nobody really understands and how to go about it is, there is different types of love, there's different levels of loves, and there's different ways to explore and show love. So I decided to kind of teach all of those facets, because even when I would ask my students, they always make it about other people. They never make it about themselves, which is something that actually surprised me. So when you say, how do I show and how do I teach? I think I take the time to explore all the different possibilities that exist out there, because the love for yourself, as I love to say, it all starts with you, because your partner will only love you as much as you love yourself, right? So if you don't have a lot of love for who you are and appreciate all of you and accept all of you, how are you going to receive it from somebody else? So that's where the quality of receiving love or being in a relationship can make a difference or not. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it absolutely does. Because when you think of that, and people are like, there's so many definitions, and I run through that with vulnerability too. How the connotation is just that it's a weakness, that it's just something that's harmful or something that's going to cause harm or exposure, which in trueness to the definition in Merriam-Webster and Oxford and all those other dictionaries out there, that is the case. But such as in love, that definition is unified through just dictionary and written, but it's explored and it's applied in so many other facets that I can't narrow down love meaning this one thing.
Yeah.
Like the general feeling of it is, of course, you love somebody, and you can ask people that, and it's funny that, because we say I love you like a family member. I mean, it's sort of like religious saying I love you. Others that we've come to know for a while, whether they be neighbors or friends that we've experienced a lot of things with or come through a lot. We say we love you. Yeah, oh
Yes.
man, I love you, man. I say it a lot of times. So I say it sometimes to my barber that comes when I've been knowing him 20 plus years. Love you, man. I said, I love you, man. Stay safe, those kind of things. And we come about it. It has so many meanings to so many people.
Yeah.
How did you narrow that down and just talking about the communication part of it and dealing with it in relationships? How important is that to communicate what that is to you and how you want that to be shown to you in relationships?
So I would say a few things is that, first off, for me, a relationship is kind of an entity on its own. There's two people that come together in a relationship. So most people go into relationship wanting and making it about themselves. It's like, I want this, I want that. What are you doing? Where you have to think about, and that's the first step to communicating this when you get into relationship with someone, is communicating your needs, your wants, your desires, your values, your boundaries. I mean, and even we could talk about vulnerability, but most people I've noticed, including myself, I've learned the hard way, is that we go into relationship having this expectation that this person is supposed to know all of us from A to Z and read our brain. But nobody is made the way we are. We are unique human beings. So nobody has been raised like you have. Nobody has gone through what you have. Nobody has been educated the same way. So the way we think is one. So don't assume that the other person in front of you will think or understand your way of thinking either. So, and I always say, think about when you come in together in the relationship, because it's in a different entity. It's like, how can you show up, and what can you do for the relationship? Not for yourself, not for the other person. It's like, what is better for us in this relationship together? So that's why I teach from the beginning, because I've come to realize most people do one of two things. Is either they will accommodate to please, because they're like, oh yeah, that will change. You know, I can change that with, especially women. We're really good at like thinking that, well, I can change him. Or you mask yourself. You're not really who you are because you're afraid to step into your power and communicate what you do really want. What are your needs? What are your desires? And I was that person. I realized, and I'm 46 years old, Carl. This was the first man that I stood into my power and was myself from the beginning. I never hid or tried to please, so I would always share and communicate who I was as a person, and he accepted it, which is great, because that's how two people should come together, is accept each other for the good and the bad, not, just the good stuff. So I would say it's learn to communicate from the beginning. This is something that has to be integrated from the beginning. And if you can manage that from the beginning, your relationship will be so much easier. And this is not just necessarily also in relationship in love. It's like in any given situation, whether it's with your family, whether it's with your friends, especially when you're developing new friendships, it's learning to communicate things that I could give the example. It's like, with the whole vaccine thing, or like if you're having political issues or whatever, and that causes friction right now, because there's so much friction right now with all these different subjects. It's like, how can you communicate and learn to respect the other person and honor their truth? You may not agree with it, but okay, I can actually respect it, honor it, acknowledge it, and we kind of like come together as two people to just be in peace with that and say, okay, I will agree to disagree, but that belongs to you, this belongs to me, and we're fine with it together.
I think the key thing, and you touched on a couple of key things there, and I think with that communication, a lot of people don't understand that communications involves vulnerability, because you have to. And when I'm talking to my clients, a lot of time I let them know that the vulnerability is not from the form of you showing the weakness, but the vulnerability enables the communication to what enables the understanding. Because when we're not communicating to people, they cannot read our minds. I'm oftentimes thinking about the movie, and I'm a Marvel guy, so I oftentimes think about the professor and how he's able to read minds, and we take it for granted that people that we interact with, people that we've maybe even known for years, we've had relationships with on all levels, whether it be professional, business, or in love, or those kind of things. We take for granted that people understand us.
Yes.
And it is such and men don't really have this problem. And I don't want to put this on women, but women are deeper thinkers than men. And it's just fascinating. So men, you give us kind of like a structure. We find that structure, we operate in it, we command it, we understand it, we move forward in it. It's not It's
Yes.
not hard for us.
No.
We don't make things hard. We don't complicate. Decisions are hard. Buying clothes on hard, shoes on those kind of things. I go, with the missus to the mall, and we'll walk around these same outfits 20 times before they decide to buy that outfit. And then you go in, I see that tie. Okay, how much the tie? By the time I'm out. These are the things that, because so men are simple. So we look at that from that perspective. If you communicate to us how you feeling, instead of putting us as a guessing game of how we should know how you are feeling, because how you felt today, we're not remembering that as much as if we woke up in the morning.
Yeah.
How you felt last night, and how you told us how you felt last night. In the morning when we wake up, we didn't forget that. And I don't mean this from the absence of how we feel about you in a relationship. We don't store those kind of things like women do.
No.
So the communication is key. And that's why how effective that it is, that it has to be something that's said and moving people forward. How do you kind of get people to understand the importance of that communication and just saying what you need, saying what you mean, saying what you would like to see, saying what you would want to happen? Because women love to play surprise me. Oh, I know he's going to surprise. He's my guy. He's been with me 100 years. I know he knows what flowers I like. I may forget and bought you tulips and use a rose person, but I saw the tulips and they look beautiful. The arrangement looked beautiful. We're thinking that I think she would love this, and you get it home and she's like, no. I don't like tulips. I like roses. What is this?
You're so right. And I love what you say is share how you feel, because that is key. If you are going to share something and communicate, always share from the perspective of it's making me feel. It's not you didn't do this, you didn't do that. It's like I call it the syndrome of the nagging. I'm sorry, I'm going to say something mean here, but I call it the nagging bitch, right? When women start like, men just go like this and la 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 la. They don't hear it. So it's learning to say how you feel about something. Express your feelings. Don't make the other person feel bad. So that's number one thing. And I love your example because when I first started dating Jeff, I was doing this. I was doing this dance competition show, and of course, when people come in, usually they're dancers after the show. People bring flowers, and of course he did. But he had bought these grocery flowers wrapped, and I am a huge flower lover. I actually buy myself flowers every single week, fresh flowers. It's my treat. It's like I'm a fan, like you. So I thought it was interesting that you actually said that. And it actually bothered me. And then I was like, oh, so this is where the wisdom and the years of learning to communicate and being vulnerable. I was like, okay, how can I express them? Because it's actually going to bother me. Maybe he doesn't know better, and he didn't. So I assume that because I loved flowers, that he should know the level of flowers that I wanted. So I remember after a couple of days, I was thinking and pondering, how can I have this conversation? Because we're just starting together. I love flowers. I know he wants to make me happy because men love to provide and please and just, fix stuff. So I said to myself, I have to actually share this. So I explained to him, I started by saying, I really appreciated that you got me flowers. It was so thoughtful. But I'm sharing this to you because it's important to me. And going forward in our rest of our lives together, I want to make sure that you succeed in making me happy. And I said, but please do not ever buy me grocery flowers ever again. And now he knows, and he knows. So it's really important to communicate and say what you want, because if you stay in that space of he should know, or he's, as you said, that he's going to guess, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And when you have these expectations, that's where you start building anger and resentment. And it's oftentimes, it's not because they're mean and they don't want to do it. It's just, they didn't know better. So
they didn't know any better, and they wasn't informed. And I deal a lot of time with clients that that's the thing that, well, I didn't really want to hurt their feelings. I hear this a lot in conversation and talking with different ones and trying to get an understanding of where they are in the spectrum of that. And I'm saying the communication is so vital that oftentimes we don't let others know what they're doing hurts us, we like it. And these are the simplicity of things in which we really learn as children
Yes.
from our parents, when we learn how to talk and communicate and say, Bobby, I know because I grew up with my younger brother, and he had I wouldn't necessarily say a problem, but his communications to girls that he liked, by me being a few years older than him, I always had to interject. His communication would be like tap them or hit them instead of saying to them. And I didn't catch it because I wasn't just like psychiatrist kind of dude, but I didn't catch it. But I would know when we would be out and playing on the playground and that was the way he would get girls' attention.
Yeah.
It's like grabbing their arm or kind of like pulling their hair or those kind of things, right? And I would just watch him sometimes. My me being the older brother, I'm about like 5.5, 6 years older than him, right? So I would be watching him and I would see the reaction of the girls. And then I would tell him once we got ready to go back in, and mom came and got us out to play it. It's like, yo, why don't you never say anything? Like, it was just curious to me because I would see him and me knowing him as my brother. I was like, why you never say anything?
Yeah.
He's like, I just don't know how to say anything. And I think that carries a lot of where we go to as an adults. We never figure out how to communicate the things that bother us. A lot of times we let things sit on us and bother us and destroy the way we feel about things until we say something. And then when we say something, we're exploding. It's wrong. It's out of content. That's all for the fact of you hadn't communicated the things that you didn't like or you did like from the beginning. And I think that's really that shows a lot of the vulnerability in you and being able to say, maybe I don't like this. And there's nothing wrong with telling people how you feel. And I think we get so caught up in this is my boss or this is my spouse or I don't want to shake the waters. I don't want confrontation. Confrontation is good.
Yes. A lot of people are afraid of that. Yes.
Yes. Confrontation is healthy. It's healthy to have a spirited debate. No.
Agreed.
Let me put my disclaimer up. Not beat nobody up. Not pulling no hair. Not. Let me make sure my disclaimer is up there. None of those kind of things where you're gonna get the 911 call to your homes.
Yes.
But in conversational debate and those kind of things are healthy because you see things from different viewpoints, and there's also the passion that comes with someone trying to explain to you how they feel about something. I enjoy debates. I really do, and I enjoy it for the fact of I want to see how passionate you are about what you're trying to tell me about. And if I can get that out of you, then I say, okay, they're passionate about that.
Yes.
When you're dealing with people in their communications and their relationships, and what piece of advice does a love coach give? I like to say love.
I love coach. I love to say that I'm a teacher that coaches.
A teacher that coaches.
I remember when I was building the program and we were saying, am I going to be a relationship coach? Am I going to be? And I was like, love coach. And I love love because it doesn't make it just about love in a relationship. It's love with yourself. And I think that to experience the real kind of love, it's exploring all the different types of love. So I love it. I'm still going to love coach. So, the one thing I would say first is that we're often afraid of hurting somebody else's feelings, but the other person's feelings that don't belong to you. So we decide already, and we don't even know how the other person is going to react. So the one thing that I do share first off is learning to share your personal feelings. And of course, there's a way of saying things. Be sensitive, be empathetic. Don't, I always say, even if you're in an argument and if like I'm a fire sign, I'm a Capricorn, I have like a big personality. So when I'm upset, I'm like, I need some time. I'll come back because I will like vomit bad things, and I don't want to do that because the other person doesn't deserve that. So we've communicated. That's our way of communicating and of saying, I need time out when we're arguing or if there's something happening. I need to take a step back. Instead of reacting, I'm going to observe or understand why I'm being triggered right now versus going into reaction mode. So that's number one thing that I often say is if you're being triggered and you're being upset, what is it? Ask yourself, take a step back, observe what's happening to you instead of going into reaction. So observe versus reaction. That's the number one thing, because oftentimes when we're upset or something's happening, it's often because we're not getting it the way we want it, right? Yeah. It's like, or there was an expectation, or he didn't do it this way, or she didn't do it that way, or she was supposed to arrive at this time but didn't arrive at that time. So it's everything. It's often about you. It's often about you if you're being triggered. So if you're able to observe versus react, that's number one. That's the number one thing I say. Second thing is I communicate with empathy. Yes, I love that. So right. It's so right. So the other thing I say, when two people come together in a relationship, I always say, think of the word tenderness. When I hear tenderness, I hear empathy. I hear vulnerability. I hear you. I understand how you're feeling, because anybody that's going to share how they're feeling, is whether you're mad, you're sad, you want to express it, but you also want to be acknowledged, and you want to say, I understand. Like, that's anybody and everybody wants that. When you think about being mad or being sad or being expressing your emotions, we often want to feel acknowledged and heard, right? So yes. I say, take the time to actually acknowledge your partners and hear them out and say, I hear what you're saying. It doesn't mean that you'll know what to do or that you'll find the solution right away, but just being able to hear that from your partner kind of disintegrates the bomb. So I remember we had our first fight, and I always like to give real life examples because, you know, I'm certainly not perfect. And we had our first argument. Well, it wasn't even an argument, but I think that my boyfriend had an accumulation of stuff that had been building for him, and he took it out on me. And I remember he reacted so bad. I was shocked. I was like, he's a very tender, gentle, patient. So all of a sudden I'm like, oh, who is this person in front of me? And my first instinct was to go and just start barking and hit back, right? I just wanted to hit back because I was like, this is not my fault. This doesn't belong to me, this situation. But because I learned wisdom, I'm taking my own advice. I actually took a deep breath. I stood back and I was like, okay, Chantal, there's pain. You're hearing pain. There's a bunch of accumulation there. Let's hear it out. And let's, be empathetic and say, I understand. And I remember we actually talked about it a couple weeks ago, because this happened 3 months ago. And he told me one thing. He was like, because we were actually saying, have we ever argued since we've been together? And I said, no. And then I remembered this one thing. And he's like, that wasn't an argument. He goes, it wasn't about us arguing. It was just an accumulation of something. And I made you were the person that kind of received
received it, right?
Yes. And he said something to me. He said, you completely demystified the whole thing because of your reaction, or how you chose not to react. And I was like, he's like, it was completely, you heard me, you acknowledged me. And I remember saying, okay, I apologize. So what can we do to fix this? What's the solution? Because I like to focus on the solution, not on the problem. The problem has happened. It's like it's something in the past. You can't change it. It's what can we do today to make things better? So those are a couple tricks that I pass on. And I would say, communicating is never a one-way street. You're two in a relationship. So I read this book that was really great on relationship called Wired for Love. And I actually did a little blurb on it on my Instagram video because I thought it was amazing. And he talks about creating a couple bubble together, which is literally, when we talk about communication, it's literally knowing your partner's, each other's needs, wants, desires in good times and in bad times. Like, how do you need to be supported if you're having a bad day? How do you need to be encouraged if you get a promotion? And most people don't take the time to understand or know what their partner needs. And I think that's unbelievable. I know when Jeff walks in after a day of work, if he's had a good day or not, just by the way he is in his eyes. And I know if he's had a bad day, I know exactly, I can pick up what happened and how I need to show up for him. Sometimes it means I need to give him some time alone and not take it personal, because this is when he talks about the couple bubble is like, it's a safety net that no matter what is happening on the exterior of everyday life, bullshit happening and stresses and everything, is that you still show up for one another and keep each other feeling safe.
Yes.
Like, if I say I need some time, he won't react, well, what's happening right now? Is she going to leave me? Is this happening? Because I'm noticing a lot with my clients, there's that insecurity mode happening, and it's not that. So if you take the time to communicate these things and honor each other's needs, wants, desires, good and bad, and you know them, it really helps to just kind of stay always on that same level. There's no room to do this. It's not you, it's not that. It's always about the relationship. How can you show up? And what can I do that's best for the relationship?
And it's important. You said something that was very, very key to there, and I just want to delve into that a couple minutes when you're talking about how you show up, and it's important, and I talk about that a lot. And it's important how you show up because of the simple fact of who that individual is, and in relationship wise, is very important because things that are said in the heat of battle cannot be taken back. Things can't be taken back anyway, but some things you don't want, you're not concerned about. You want them out there because you want people to kind of give you that clearance.
Yeah.
But when you're in a relationship, you really don't want that kind of clearance. And when I say that, some words that you guys once had, and it is so hard to get that back once something has been expressed.
Yes.
And you said that was very key to what I'm delving into now. When you go into that, how vulnerability has you to be self-aware, that you were aware to what was going on in the relationship and how important that was, that you didn't dive into what I think I can just about say 9 out of 10 of us do. Yo, where you come? Well, I'm trying to, it's a defensive mechanism that you bypassed and you let the operational of the relationship take place. And I think this is where we miss the boat a lot of times in the relationships, whether it be work related, whether it be love related, whether it be just friendship related, however that relationships entail, we miss those opportunities that's presented to us to change the dynamic. And that's exactly what you did. And a lot of time that causes more closeness when those opportunities, because when he came back, and he understood the gravity of what you did, that of course molds the relationship even more. Because
100%.
because I know from a man's standpoint, you're like, wow, wow, like that's amazing to me. Because man, we just, oh, hold up, we got two things that we're gonna do. We're either gonna come back at you like, yo, I don't care what happened with you with that, that's your thing. Why you coming off on me? Or we gonna come out with, okay, I'm leaving, I'll go get some air and I'll be back. None of those things really address what is taking place. And they haven't closened the relationship of what you guys are. So I think you brought that to the forefront, and that was very. I hope my audience caught that, because that was really key to the communication and vulnerability in relationships. That was a prime example of her showing the vulnerability wise, and him as well coming back acknowledging. Because men have a hard time sometimes saying they was wrong, they sorry, I messed up. Those things, like, they don't go hand in hand with men. Like, you may find a few. If you find a few, if you got one, oh my God, chain them to the door. Don't let them out.
I have mine chained. I'm lucky.
Chain them to the door.
He's a great communicator, and we're very fortunate to have that communication aspect. And I think that's, when we talk about our subject, this is a key success. It's one of the top 3 on making sure your relationship will succeed. And the other thing is that I could add to that is learning to let go of ego, of wanting to be right, of wanting to be, I'm gonna make him pay, or is it really worth it? Of what it will kind of like continue swirling versus saying, and that's my number 1 tip is like, catch yourself. Oh, am I triggering like this because my ego's in, it wants to be right. It's like pissed off, and it's like, I'm not getting my way and I'm going to pout. And so be the bigger person. And oftentimes if you can do that, and again, because I can hear people now, or I get it in my groups as well, is that, well, what if he's always not doing it as well? And well, I said, that's a problem, because you should have installed, this needs to be done in relationship from the beginning. Or if you are already in relationship and haven't been able to develop that, that's something that you guys need to decide as a couple, that we're going to sit down and going forward, we're going to build this together, because it's literally, it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street.
And it's going to take that communication. It's going to take that, like Yolanda says, thank you, Yolanda, for chiming in, let go of ego. And a lot of times that's what it is. And I can tell you from a man's perspective, it's not all the time us trying to show our ego. We normally don't really try to show that with women, because that's just our side of us in that, where we kind of like, we just going along with whatever they're going along. And when snacks come along, then we communicate those snacks like, yo, they're coming there. We mostly do the ego matching when it comes to men against men. But in the essence of how important that is, you have to let it go, and it has to be checked at the door in relationships, because the benefit of relationships. And you said something too. I'm gonna backtrack to that quickly. You said something too in the beginning that really, really struck me. We went down another road, and I didn't get a chance to revisit it. Was the simple fact that you said how the ego is, and how in the beginning of, oh my God, I lost it just that quick. In the beginning of that, you was talking about the importance of the men and relationships and communicating. And I was saying how different men are, but a lot of times in the essence of that ego, it has to be stroked on both sides. And the love in the relationship is not about there it comes back to me. You brought it in to saying that most of the times we go into these relationships, and we go into whatever relationship it is and whatever dynamic it is, it's always about what's going to benefit us. And relationships is not always catered to what's going to benefit us. That's why it's a relationship. Like sometimes the ship's going to go my way, sometimes it's going to go your way.
Yes.
But we have to come into it understanding that a lot of people enter into marriages like this. They enter into formal relationships like this, partnerships, business ships. They enter this, okay, well, what can I get out of this? And don't think of the whole dynamic. And a part of that is what Yolanda just covered it with the ego. Because when you get in a relationship, you got to let go of the ego. How many times you get in these relationships and you're like, no, I don't too much care for that, but he cares for that. Like, I don't care for, I was talking to somebody, and she said, my husband loves purple. She said, I hate purple. She said, but he loves purple. I was like, well, how do you guys kind of work over this? Like, she's never explained this to them. They've been married about 20 years. She's never told him that she hates purple, right? But purple is his favorite color. So to keep the dynamic, she just felt over these years and years of time, I'll never say nothing bad about purple, right? So I was having a conversation with them, and I was talking with them, and I said, let's visit that purple. And she got this kind of look on her face like, are we going to go down there? And I said, yeah. I just want to bring this point up because I just want you guys to understand how the communication is so vital. I was like, what is your favorite color? And she said blue. And then I asked him, I said, did you know her favorite color was blue? He said, no, I thought she liked purple. And I said,
that's awesome.
And I laughed because I brought that to the forefront for them to see and for her to see what he really thought. It had nothing to do with, like, if you'd have communicated to him 19 years ago plus, you wouldn't have probably had to put up with all that purple, because he'd have kept that to himself. That's my favorite color. I won't impose on that with her, but that was funny. And they both cracked up about it. And he was like, well, I'm going to get rid of everything purple, because I had no idea. And they spent all this time together in a marriage, in a relationship, and they never even communicated something so simple as that. Well, I really don't like purple.
I'm not crazy about purple either. Well, it depends, but I could not see myself living in a purple life. But you know what I like that you said? And she probably knew that wasn't worth arguing about. And that's another thing in relationship is it, because I really help, so I specialize in helping people being in relationships, but I also help women and men learn how to attract and be in the relationship, because we're often thinking, you talked about want. I want him to be 6'2". I want her to cook. I want him to run. I want her to be adventurous. but we don't think about what do I need in my
Yeah.
relationship to grow and evolve with someone. So when I do the vision of their relationship with someone, I ask the question, what is so important to you that is worth compromising or not in the long run? So for her, if we look at that it was probably not worth it. It was like, there's other fish to fry. And it's again, like Jeff loves his race. He's a huge F1 fan, and so he'll spend every other weekend literally in front of the TV for 5 to 6 hours. And does it inconvenient me? Like, do I enjoy it? I'm like, but that's his passion and he loves that. So I need to give him that space, right? So it's about honoring each other's wants, needs, and desires, but it's knowing what really matters. And I remember saying this to a girlfriend of mine. Her husband was really good at running errands. He'll she's she's a chef. She's like a really great chef. So he will run all the errands and do them the way she asks. And one night we're at her house for dinner and he's not putting away the dishes properly the way she wants it because she's super anal and wants things. And I was like, girl, really? Is it really worth it? Like, he does this. And she was like, you know what, Chantal, you're absolutely right. I'm nagging at something that's not worth it. So pay attention to these things, these details, because what kills relationship is everyday routine. So learning to communicate what really matters from the beginning is super important and key. If certain things are important to you, you have to state them, and you have to state them from the beginning, because I always give a super simple example. Boy meets girl, boy says, I love Sunday night football. So girl says in her head, yeah, I don't really like football, but yeah, I like it, because she wants to make him happy or please, right? So, girl starts watching football with boy every Sunday. And then 6 months down the line, things are getting more serious and she starts slipping or not wanting to watch football for boy on every Sunday. Move in together. A year later, girl loses her shit on boy saying, why do you always have to watch your football? Boy's like, well, what do you mean? I said it from the beginning that I always want, and you said you liked it.
Yeah.
Friction, conflict, because you're not accepting. And men communicate their needs much better than women do, I find.
Yeah, they do, because
it's super simple.
It goes with the simplicity of, and we're not, and any woman that's listening or understanding or in relationships understand the truthfulness behind what we're saying. Most men aren't hard. I mean, you may find some men divas. Don't get me wrong. There are some out there that that you feel that they're prettier than women and they divified, and this is how they carry themselves. This is their walk, their gait, their gaze. However, there are some men like that. For the most part, a man just supposed to be able to take care of what he's supposed to take care of, do the things that he wants to take care of, and enjoy the things that he wants to enjoy. And the simplicity falls within that, and that's pretty much a job, pretty much sports or a hobby. And pretty much, okay, hon, you okay? That's our conversation, and it don't really go any farther than that. So we have a real simple way of just saying this is how it is.
Yes.
But with women, and I don't want to use the term agenda because that's really unfair. But they just think about things in so many ways that men don't, and that whoever created that. But I remember reading that books quite a few years ago. Men are from Venus and women are from Mars.
Yes.
Or men from vice versa.
Yes.
But I mean, it's just truly that, because on the dynamic of how we think about things,
super different
compared to women, it is just totally blown out the water differently. We don't even give all of that speculation to things. Like women to give a lot of speculation to if they shoes match their pocketbook.
Yeah.
Men, okay, I got a brown belt on. Ain't nobody gonna see it because I got a suit on. Like it's no big thing for us.
No big
Women,
deal. Women
you
love to
know,
make everything complicated.
yes,
We
a woman
overthink
like
everything. We
um,
overthink everything. So
my
yeah.
Dolce Gabbana not matching with my shoes, and I don't have the orange and matching with the then it's a catastrophe. You got like, yo, that's not really going with that belt don't match. I got on a gray suit, but I'm wearing this brown belt, and I put on some brown loafers, and I'm done. You're like, so that's how we think. So
Easy.
this has been amazing. Chantal, tell us where we can find you, where people can find you, and come and get some of this greatness that you got going on, girlfriend. You got a great thing going on. Tell them about your program and what you offer.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I can be reached on my website. The program is called Raise Your Love Signal. So it's actually raiseyourlovesignal.com. So come and raise your love signal with
Raise
me.
your love signal.
I offer different services, including a 12-week program that can either be done in groups or on one-on-ones. There's also some dating tips and calls that I do to help people once, we've done this kind of work. It doesn't mean that you're like ready to go out into the world. So there's different services that I offer on my website and also on my Instagram handle, which is my name, Chantal.Landreville. Yes, where I have tons of videos and lives, which you will be a guest on my platform as well in a couple of months. Yes. And that's where I can be found.
Yes, and I also got her LinkedIn down there at the bottom. You want to
yes, LinkedIn. What am I saying?
She checks in as that. Yes, we have so many things going on. And it has just been, man, I'm just excited about a lot of the things you're doing. I'm glad we had this conversation. We've had it privately, but I'm glad we haven't. We've added to it more openly where people are more aware. And I don't like to say exposed, because it brings a wrong sometimes, but people are aware. When you make people aware, they tend to make better choices, better decisions, and that enables them, educates them to understand what they really need and where they need to go from. And I think in relationships, there is a need for, like I talk so much about vulnerability and the aspect of that grows the relationship, but the communication is also the other hand in that. Vulnerability is just one hand, but if I'm not communicating that, then I can't make the connection. And doing that with the relationship, whether it's in one or out of one, and whatever that relationship encompass, you have to have communication and vulnerability to make it thrive. I have to be able to trust in you to some extent, and you vice versa. And these are things that's important to us as growing as a humanity. And then I think the world will be a better place. I know I always say that, but I think the certain things that we just like ratchet it down and tighten the nuts and bolts on certain things, each individual, I think as a whole would be a lot better with interacting and involving with people. So,
yeah, because we all deserve love, right?
Yes.
Every single human being wants, desires, and needs love. We all do. So why not make it better for you? Why not make it a better experience? Why not, so all of us together. So it's my mission is to teach all this conscious communication with love. So
yes, and I'm gonna ask these two questions because you guys know the conversations with Carl. I always have my little funny questions at the end, and this is to get into the psyche of the guest and kind of see what they got going on in the mind up there. Sometimes when I rattle my head, sometimes you hear some loose screws up there, but I know that my guests don't always have that, so I like to see where they thinking it. So, Chantal, you are no different. I'm going to ask you the same thing. I got two lovely questions I'm going to ask you, and I just want to see what your response would be. And my first one will be what I ask all my guests is, if you had the opportunity to be an animal, what animal would you be?
I love that question. I would be a butterfly. A butterfly because they're gorgeous. They're always beautiful to admire, but they are free. They are just this, and they love to buzz and be everywhere and just explore. I'm a creature of freedom and curiosity, so I would definitely be a butterfly. Just be able to go spread my wings as many places as I can.
That is amazing. That is, and they are all over the place, and they're so inhabited, but they are, and they enjoying the freedom of just being able to fly. And but you are the first guest that I've had to say butterfly. I mean,
Oh,
that's
really?
amazing. Everyone I've asked on all the shows I've did, I've never had anybody else say the butterfly, and I think a lot of people put too much thought into that. But I think as people be like, is there a right or a wrong answer? There's really
I
not. It
know.
really just goes with the kind of individual you are, because a lot of times we migrate to those things that we want to be, that we're not there physically in the body that we're in, but
Yeah.
sometimes we think animals are those things. So that's why I
Yes.
came up with that question. And the other
I
one is,
love it.
it's my famous question. I always ask this question too. If you were a famous person, what famous person would you be?
Oh, that's so easy for me to
If you could be
say.
a famous person,
If I,
yes.
it would be Oprah Winfrey because
Oprah.
she is a, what that woman has been able to do to create awareness and growth for the world. And
Mhm.
I always say, and people are going to hate me for saying this, but because now you never, but it's like I always said from my dreams, if one day I'm going to be the white Oprah. Because of the impact. And you know what, Carl,
Yes.
I love about that woman is that I was actually reading her recent book that she launched, and she's never done any form of therapy in all the trauma, and she's had some serious trauma. It's
Mhm.
always been through her guests
Mhm.
and all the connections that she's met through her life path. And
Mhm.
that's what she does. She's a connector. She shares what she's learned through her
Mhm.
journey. And that's my intention. It's what I started doing. So yes, I would definitely be Oprah.
Yes, and we are on the same page with that. It's two people that I always said I want to be if I was famous. One was King, Martin Luther King. I want to be just the vision that he had, and his ability
Yeah.
to be different than what his circumstances were, was like, that's really, it's a lot of other ones that have done it, but I mean the focal points of what I really nailed down. And Oprah was my second one. If I can get a message of them too, because I consider myself a connector, and I don't
Yeah.
always put my story on, but I grab people's stories, and I kind of like see that and pass that along with others. And that's the point of connecting, where people can feel empowered in your
Mm.
presence, inspired by your presence, and then they're be able to achieve from your presence. And that's why I always wanted to be those two, because those two, Martin inspired and empowered, and Oprah inspired and empowered, and their traumatic past had nothing to do with what they gave to you. They just gave to you anyway, and
Yeah.
it didn't, and that's just something that was so amazing to me. So we are definitely out of eye with that.
I agree. I
We're definitely
agree.
out of
I
eye with that.
totally agree. And you know
Yeah.
what? I to finish off is that most people that
Hmm.
have created an impact or that were big leaders that kind of with those kinds of messaging all come
Hmm.
from a trauma. They just
Yes.
decided not let their story determine or define them.
Hmm.
And I often we learn, like I look at everything I had to go through to get to where I am today. And I was thinking about that the other day. I would never take all the pain because
No.
I needed it to grow and come into this place and
Mm.
develop a lot of qualities I didn't have back in the days, including empathy and patience.
Yes, and it developed all of those things, and I would never change my trajectory, even though I know better
Yeah.
than what my trajectory
Yeah.
was. I wouldn't change it, because the actual evidence of the experience has created a greater person in me that I could have modeled and made for my own self. Because
Yeah.
certain things I would have left out,
Yes.
that through the course of life and experience gave me an opportunity to bring into my own being, and that created a better self. So
Yeah.
how can we get better than that? Oh man, Chantal, it's lovely. We've had a beautiful time.
Yes.
We
Thank
thank you
you.
for sharing this time with me. For everyone that has joined, thank you so much, Alonda, and those who have came and commented. We're going to put this in a hashtag replay, so we're going to replay it. If you have any other questions or anything in there, put it in there. I do go back and watch them. Chantal will get a copy as well, so we'll be able to touch on those, answer questions, give you information, references, what have you, because that's what we love to do here with Conversations with Carl. So, dear, it has been a pleasure. I appreciate you, and you have a beautiful rest of your week.
Thank you.
Enjoy this short work week, like I told.
Yes,
So
true that.
earlier, yeah, it's only 4 days left for this week. So go and give them 4 days because they gave you an extra one yesterday. So
Exactly. Thank you
go
for
take
the
it for.
opportunity and keep shining your
Thank you.
light, dear Carl.
You as well. You as well. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a great one, and I will be back next time.